if anyone has any reasons not to be involved within the possibility they're going to record this open house, please let us know. So with this opportunity, also kindly for or this permission to do so. Good evening. It's also a possibility that I can introduce the speakers for tonight, because if I'm correct, you can see that most of the speakers have a certain background of the Africana development studies. So this is what we can discuss tonight in this open house. And once again, for the ones who are getting in or has been let in with a few seconds ago, I wish you a warm welcome. My name is Marciano. I'm not the one we're going to talk that much. I'm asked to be the moderator. And this gives me the opportunity to start by introducing the ones who are responsible for introducing Africana studies into Europe. And first of all, I will start with Dr. Cheryl White. Good afternoon to you at first sight. Warm welcome. We're pleased to have you here. Maybe you can give us a short introduction about your position and what you're about to contribute tonight.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cheryl White, and I am the coordinator here of the Africana Development Studies course at the Anton de Kamp University of Suriname. And I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the different courses, the descriptions, the teachers that will be teaching throughout the next 2 years. It's a 2-year commitment. So I'm here for that reason, and I'm looking forward to interacting with everyone.
Thank you so much for this intro. Furthermore, we have Mr. Helmut Gazius, if I'm correct, or otherwise you will correct me. But to you also a warm welcome. Please help us with a short introduction.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name has already been mentioned, Helmut Gazius. I'm the head of the Department of Sociology at the Anton de Kamp University. And my relation with this certificate course has to do much with my involvement in the development of this certificate course, together with some other people who are not in this Zoom meeting. But that's my relation with the certificate course.
Thank you also. Thank you also, Mr. Helmut.
And I will give some information about de enrollment. Inschrijvingen, de mensen die dat zouden willen weten, de enrollment procedures.
Yes, thank you also for this contribution. Furthermore, we have Professor Adu Gyamfi, if I'm correct. Good afternoon for you, Professor. A warm welcome. Maybe you can give us a short introduction about your position and about your contribution tonight.
Good evening, my brother, and good evening to everyone. I'm Samuel Gyamfi, as mentioned by the chair. I'm with Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, Ghana. I am the chair of the committee that seeks to further establish the cooperation between our university and College of Humanities and Social Sciences with the University in Suriname. So far, I've been working with Cheryl to look at the possibility of getting my colleagues to cooperate and collaborate to ensure that we get our part of the bargain running in the system, i.e. contributing the African quota to the subject, among other things. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution so far. We're going to hear more of you later this open house. For now, my last speaker to introduce will be Mr. Marvin Hokstam from Broos Institute, Marvin, to you, opportunity to introduce yourself and Bros Institute as well.
Good evening, everybody. Marciano, I'm going to do more than a short introduction, if you don't mind. Good evening, everybody. My name is Marvin Hoekstam, and it's going to be a longer introduction than the rest. But after that, I'm going to shut up because I think it's really this is really about the people who are going to be teaching the course. We as Bros Institute we're only able to bring the course to the Netherlands, but as I think for the rest of the evening, it will be better if Professor Adu Yamfi, Helmut Gesius, and Cheryl White have the floor mostly. But I'm the executive director of Bros Institute. And as I was preparing for this talk, I spent many hours thinking of what to say right now. When we were planning this event, I was the one who insisted that all speakers will only get 5 minutes. And I realized after that a 5-minute speech would not even scratch the surface of what I have to say. So I'll just suffice with expressing my pride that Bros Institute has been able to partner with Adicus and KNUST to bring this important course to the Netherlands. We started our foundation because we wanted to bring practical solutions to the problem of Eurocentric domination in education here in the Netherlands. This Eurocentric domination creates a lot of unnecessary holdups and barriers for people of African descent. It doesn't support Black children in the development of their own Afrocentric identity. How can you be expected to excel when you don't know who you are? We're being educated to fail, and everybody complains that we're failing. So we, Bros Institute, we were thrilled when the university, the Anton de Kom University in Suriname, developed this course in Suriname, and we're proud to be bringing it to the Netherlands now. And we're thrilled at the prospect of working also with the Kwame Nkrumah University to bring more Afrocentric courses to Europe in the future. And this course, by the way, is only the first of a whole series of academic courses that we will be introducing in the coming years. Next month, we're launching a project called Ozo Zone, with which we will be preparing secondary school students in Amsterdam Zuidoost for their MBO career. In a couple of months, we are launching a course on decolonizing journalism, which of course is my expertise. For as long as I can remember, Black people have been calling for change. We've been calling for change for hundreds of years because the system doesn't work for us. I think it was Einstein who said that it's foolish to keep doing the same thing over and over and then expect a different result. It's time for change, and we are actively bringing that change by practically adding our views to education, because we believe that education is the key to more understanding, more cohesion. And we're not waiting on anybody to do this for us. We're actively making it possible for people who work with Black people in the Netherlands and Europe to learn about Black people. We're actively making it possible for Black people to learn about themselves, which will in turn create, a stronger, more confident Black community in the Netherlands, in Europe. So I'm proud that we're kicking off this course, and I'm proud of everyone who showed interest and who signed up to be here today. You're being part of history. I often have the impression that people act like all history has already been written, and I believe that that's defeatist. You can write history every single day. By being here with us now, you're writing history with us right now. I'll leave it at that for now because somebody keeps calling me. Back to you, Marciano.
Marvin, Bros, founding father of Bros Institute. Thank you so much for this introduction. And also, thank you so much, Marvin, to explain also the necessity of the Africana Development Study course. Before I head to the next speaker, Marvin, I'm quite sure that you have a certain idea of an ideal world, let's say 10 years ahead from this moment. You call it historical. So instead of asking you, what do you mean by historical? what do you hope to achieve 10 years from now with introducing the Africana development studies?
When we founded Broos University, Broos Institute, our intention was to have schools that where you could attend, where you could send your children, so they could, aside from the regular school subjects that they learn, they would also be able to learn from Afrocentric perspectives. So it wouldn't be schools just for Black children, but schools for everybody who could then learn also from an Afrocentric perspective.
That's quite interesting, the Afrocentric perspective, because it seems like there's a necessity to blind it into the European discourse, in the European system and thinking, if I'm correct.
Yeah. The world isn't a monolith, right? There's many different people on this earth, and we have always acted like the only perspective that matters. We've always been taught to think that the only perspective that matters is a Eurocentric perspective, and it doesn't work well for us. So we wanted to indeed add more Afrocentric perspectives, more Afrocentric views, more Afrocentric history to the curriculum, and not incidental, but structural, because yeah, we're not Black people once every so often.
Well, it's quite ambitious, but also very special to be part of this open house in this moment. And also being special to be part of this collaboration is the Anton de Kom University from Suriname, South America. Mr. Helmut, you already introduced yourself a little bit, but after hearing the ambition of the Broos Institute, and Anton de Kom University also decided to be part of this collaboration and supporting the possibility of activating the African Development Study here in Europe, here in the Netherlands especially. So I will give you the possibility to explain us why Anton de Kom decided to be part of this collaboration. We're sorry to say, but we see your lovely smile, we see your lovely teeth, but now we only hear the lovely voice. So
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
No,
Thank
I
you.
say, yeah. I say, you could say that this collaboration was the idea of a meeting that Marvin and Nick had last year. Marvin and I, we know each other from school times, and I told him about this course, this certificate course, and what the relevance is of this course for the Suriname society. Because as you know, it started with an idea that the Ashanti king who brought a visit to the university expressed in a presentation that he gave at the Anton de Kom University. It was his idea to the Kwame Nkrumah University of Technology and Science has a cooperation, a joint venture with a collaboration with the Anton de Kom University, and what we did is take his idea and start to work on it. There was a commission installed, and they did all what they can do to do a basic research to see if there is any relevance, any need for this kind of course, and it was. And with the findings of that research, we held a validation meeting, and from that meeting, the course was drafted, and a technical commission from the university worked on the course design. Yeah, it's a bit of a long story, but
it gives a certain idea, Mr. Helmut, not to be rude, but more like the first thing I have in mind after this introduction is, was the Anton de Kamp's surprised by the interest from the African country, and especially from the Ashanti tribe, because it must be a quite great recognition that they are also waiting for your knowledge and for your expertise. So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about this one too, as well.
About you mean the African side of the story?
Indeed, that they have interest in the perspective from Suriname and their knowledge from Anton de Kamp themselves.
Yeah. Maybe Cheryl could talk a bit about that, but indeed, as I've understand it, the Ashanti king, after he expressed his idea, it was a unique chance for the university to be engaged with a university in Africa in this way, you know. I don't know if there is any such collaboration. I doubt it on this scales with this commitment as it is the case with this certificate course. So for the Anton de Kamp University, it is one of it's one of a million chance, you can say, to be engaged with Ghana, you know, and of course there will be more collaborations with other university in Africa, but it was for us historical to be engaged with Ghana, and of course it took another dimension with the collaboration with Bros Institute. So you can say it is it is the cherry on the cake, as they would say it, that three academic institutes, you can say, are engaged in a collaboration that's unique, you know, and it is the first time that our university will deal on a scientific matter, because the courses are lectured by scientists, researchers. It is the first time that we will look into Africana issues on from a scientific perspective.
Thank you so much, Mr. Helmut, for this contribution, and also for explaining that this unique opportunity also has a certain, I would describe it as momentum in history. We're talking about momentum. I'm very glad that you made it within this open house, Professor Adu, because this is not the first time that there is a collaboration from typical African scientists and knowledge brought to Europe or brought to other continents. But it's quite unique that Suriname also has been involved with a certain common background and a certain common history. So we're glad that you also can tell us what the main reason is why the KNUST decided to be part of this collaboration as well. So thank you so much to be here, and warm welcome to you also, Professor.
Thank you very much for calling me in again. It's interesting because if you look at the Asante Hene, whom he talks about, The Asante is the head of the Asante Kingdom, which historically would spread as far as to the La Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast, some territories around that area. The kingdom was as big and huge to the extent that it was until the last war, which was the Yasantua War, which would topple it by 1901, and by 1902, it was annexed by the British. The Asante had sagacious kings and also had built well-structured institutions over time. And this kingdom, when it was reconstituted under the return of Nana Prempeh Sadman Prempeh in the 1930s, there was the reconfiguration or reformation of the Asante Confederacy, and that Asante Confederacy now had an Asante Hene who had taken over fully his kingdom to rule beyond being only a paramountcy in Kumasi, but rather being in charge of his kingdom as it is. So that Asante today refers to all Asantes and all other persons who feel part of that community within Asante and the diaspora. Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, has its chancellor in the person of the Asante Hene, who is the life chancellor of the university. And he is keenly interested in what the university does, first of all, to expand, to grow, to contribute to knowledge, to the building of the economy of Ghana, and further afield to build synergies with other institutions, especially persons of African descent and those in the diaspora. And here within the diaspora relationship, it's also important to say that Asante historically has been all-embracing and all-encompassing. In that respect, you might not be an African, a Black person, but if you believe in Asante-Sem, that is the Asante unity and the need to bring people together for development, then you could be as Caucasian as you can. But if you espouse to that ideology and philosophy, you could be part and parcel of this kind of community we talk about. In many respects, the Asante Kingdom became great because of its vast and encompassing nature, where if it conquered territories, it will get the members of those territories to be absorbed, imbibed, in a way, into the Asante community. Some of whom would even rise to hold traditional political office in Asante, and some, I would say, even became chiefs and wing and divisional commanders and all that. To that extent, we are looking at a kingdom which has outlived the, if you like, the 18th century. Outlived the 19th century, and it's now, having outlived the 20th century and now in the 21st century doing so well. The fundamental call of our responsibility, the committee which I chair, is to make sure that the Asante Hene's relationship with Suriname and Ghana's historical ties with persons of African descent would be, properly situated. And for that to happen, a program as designed by the University in Suriname ties into the sharing of knowledge between KNUST, which at the last count has over 85,000 students, would be interested in working with the experts in Suriname to build a kind of program where we are able to share the indigenous African perspective, including the other perspectives the scholars from our institution come with based on their interactions with literature and the other worlds. In many respects, what happens is that we would have been able to make a contribution to Africans in the diaspora and individuals who are interested in the African narrative and in the broader developmental narrative, which also embraces the globalized, narrative where human beings have crisscrossed over time. And history has shown people forcefully migrating or intentionally migrating, forming new communities and building new alliances, and still trying to find ways to bend back to their roots and to their history. So my committee has made a lot of recommendations, i.e., we have suggested lecturers, some of whom are historians, others are economists, others are land economists, and others are educationists, among various experts who come onto this program to make a contribution. Not only that, we are also interested in regular seminars. I was tempted when the chair, your good self, you were talking about how Afrocentric the discussions were going to be and all that, to have tried to present the other part of my presentation, which I could not present this morning, where I tried to sketch the African scholars and writers like Chinua Achebe, like Wole Soyinka, like what do you call Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who is the new kid on the block, and the other African intellectuals like my own first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. These actors and these major intellectual luminaries and writers bring us to a certain table. And that is what we bring to the table in our discussion, to project knowledge production in Africa, to project the literature in Africa, what the Western ideological framing have tried to push to the background and not allow same to suffice is what we bring to the table. Where what the gatekeepers, for example, have over time tried to do to, if you like, bottle the African intellectual, the African knowledge, the African ideology and philosophy of life and all that is what we bring to the table. And so we anticipate that we'll have regular conferences, regular seminars, where we are able to bounce off ideas to discuss the African identity, the African future, and the African synergies with her Western counterparts. And within this broader framing, KNUST has been that melting pot of ideas, because we have a lot of collaborations and cooperation with institutions both at home and abroad. And such experience is what we add to the rich experience of Cheryl White, and the others in the university in Suriname and your university, to seek to generate and produce a new class of thinkers, either young or old, who would become worthy ambassadors of the African agenda and the global developmental agenda that brings all of us to a certain equal table. This is what I will say for now, my brother.
But thank you so much for this briefly enthusiastic introduction, because to me, the first words that would come in mind would be like, you're a very enthusiastic ambassador when it comes to I would say, the renaissance of the African philosophy, because that's what I feel in your presentation. And also you describe, you call the new kids on the block, but you know, to me, it's like a new perspective on several perspectives we can have on African philosophy, and it gives us a lot more handheld in lots of global issues we need to deal with. So yeah, it's quite fine that this generosity from the KNUST is available through the Africana Development Studies. And I'm glad with this introduction as well. To our visitors, the one who just came lately, a warm welcome for this open house. I'm the moderator for tonight, Marciano. And before I will head the word to Marvin and especially to Dr. Cheryl White, at first sight, if there are any questions, you can put it in the chat. Then I will take it with me. If I see like, oh, it is a bit relevant to ask the question, then through me, I will phone it to the relevant speaker or speakers as well. The rest of the programs will be that at first time, there will be an introduction of the course itself. Dr. Cheryl White and Marvin Hoxton will first start with explain the relevancy, and afterwards they will talk about the outline of the course. So what does the course looks like in general terms? And after we have do that, within 20 minutes from now, then we're gonna end this phase. Then we're gonna start about what does the study yield. So it will be a roundtable discussion, so every visitor and participant can involve in it, and we're gonna discuss the study in some social issues we're dealing with nowadays here in Europe. And after the roundtable discussions, then we will make a summary of the possibilities. But first of all, I would like to give the possibility to Dr. Cheryl White and to Mr. Marvin Hoxton from Bros Institute to give us a little more head and explanation about the course itself. So up to you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marciano. I'm a bit intimidated to follow Dr. Adu Galfi. That was an excellent stirring of the foundation of why we're doing this, the reason why we're doing this, and the need for it. I think Helmut mentioned earlier that initially when this course was, the inception of the course began with doing some studies here in Suriname to understand why people wanted to have this kind of certificate course created. And we've got an active cohort. They're halfway through their studies. And after the first course, we did an evaluation with the students. And one of the feedback that we received was that they were adamant that they wanted more of an African diaspora intellectual foundation. They had read many of the books that were written by African diaspora researchers from the European side, and they wanted to read things that had been produced by their fellow diaspora person. And so we took that into consideration, and with that reinvigorated this relationship with the Kwame Nkrumah University. And what we have now, because what we were lacking was really an Africanist. We don't have an African historian here at our university. And the way our courses are set up is we've got 4 blocks. Each block offers 2 courses. The first block is based in African history. There's 2 courses, African history and then African diaspora historical reckoning, so to speak. And for that particular course, we were very fixed on having someone from the Kwame Nkrumah teach these classes, which we do have. So for those of you who intend, and I hope to see you, to register with us, please know that you'll have a historian from Kwame Nkrumah teaching that first course in March. That starts March 19th. The courses that follow that, after block 1, that's focused on African history, which is required, by the way. We do require everyone to take block 1. It's very necessary because it sets the foundation, it sets the tone of what you'll be learning and the roots from which all other intellectual ideas will be springing. After that, we have block 2, and block 2 will explore identity, ethnicity, diversity, as well as culture, religion, and spirituality. We have Surinamese intellectuals teaching that class, but we also have others from Kwame Nkrumah that will be teaching, and other academics as well from throughout the diaspora that will be a part of that as well. Block 3 will shift focus a bit towards land ownership and economy and entrepreneurship. You heard Dr. Adu mention earlier that, one of their one of their professors that studies traditional land ownership, Dr. Kwabena Abiamo. Did I say his name correctly? Abiyama. Yeah. Yeah. Guest lecture. We just had that course a couple of months ago, and he guest lectured in that course, which was taught. The primary lecturer was a Suriname academic, a Suriname anthropologist named Samuel Emanuels. He taught that course for us. And so together, collaborating, both taught different aspects of that course in traditional land ownership. After block number 3, block 4 focuses on upbringing, nurturing, and family relationships. And the last class in that group is that of political governance and leadership. And for both those courses, again, we have Kwame Nkrumah lecturers, as well as our lecturers here from Suriname, and many others within the diaspora. You know, this upcoming course in Nurture and Family Relationships will have guest lectures by persons like Saran Stewart. She's a Jamaican. She's based at the University of Connecticut and has been exploring ideas about the shame, the linguistic shame of colonialism, how that affects when children are constantly being told that they haven't properly learned the colonial language. And I know it, I see it here in Suriname all the time, and I'm not Surinamese, but I see the criticism here all the time about how well your Dutch is, that you don't speak Dutch good enough. And so therefore, it's an inroad for disrespect and shame. So I see it play out in this post-colonial environment. And she does a lot of research around that, the effect that has on the upbringing, the academic upbringing of children. That's Saran Stewart. We also have Dr. Peggy Brunache, who is the director of the Beniba Institute for the Study of Slavery at the University of Glasgow. She'll also be a guest lecturer in this course. She focuses on foodways, African foodways as expressed archaeologically. She's an archaeologist, as expressed through different archaeological sites throughout the Caribbean. So all of these classes, we try to bring in a real mix of different academics that are complementary to that course, to that topic. The course in political governance and leadership will be taught by a Suriname, Hans Breyveld, who's a political figure here in the country, but we'll also have some guest lecturers from Horace Campbell, who's a Pan-Africanist, who's based at the Syracuse University in New York and has written several books on Pan-Africanism. He's also a Jamaican in the Caribbean and West Africa, spent a lot of time working in West Africa as well. So we've pulled a lot of intellectuals from within the diaspora to contribute to each of the courses so that people are learning. When we talk about learning from that African perspective, oftentimes the fixation with a lot of European scholars, and I don't say this to cast aspersions, but I mean, we read the books. The fixation is often with counting pennies. How much money did Europe spend in the Caribbean and South Africa? How many persons were there? It's a fixation on things and not necessarily the experiences of people. And that's what we want to shift. We want to shift that perspective to the experiences of people on the ground and not a fixation on the things. That's a part of it. That's a part of it. We're not naive. We understand that. But we understand that there needs to be a balance in perspective as well, that there needs to be two sides of the coin presented. In the African history course, the one that the first iteration of it that was taught last year, we had a scholar from the US, Paula Royster, Dr. Paula Royster, who's a Fulbright fellow. She was here in Suriname, and she gave two or three lectures in geography, in how there's this whole discussion, intellectual discussion about how the continent of Africa is represented on historical maps, how it's misrepresented to be a lot smaller and less significant than it really is on the landscape. And so how that shapes our perception of the continent and the role of the continent in deep history, right, in evolutionary history. So all of these courses will have these kinds of people drawn from many different intellectual backgrounds: anthropology, archaeology, the social sciences, education, political scientists, all of the courses, 8 courses, 4 blocks, 8 courses spanning 2 years. And we're hoping that these courses, our aim, our target are working adults, or those who are just interested in learning more about this region of the world from people who are well-established intellectuals that have been writing and publishing and speaking on these matters for many, many years.
Thank you
I
so
don't
much, Cheryl, with explaining the course and the route we need to follow and the base start within. And what I also hear, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. It sounds like with this course, the Africana Development Studies, that it also gives me an idea of a very dynamic liberal arts structure, so that you need several perspectives based on a certain diaspora identity. Am I right, or can you just correct me if I'm wrong?
No, you're right. It does have a liberal arts sort of structure to it. The intent is that the course is providing people with some basis that maybe in the future, if they'd like to, matriculate to a bachelor's program somewhere, that possibility might exist. We're working towards having that be possible now. But it does provide a good perspective on history, aspects of the social science, political science. A lot of it is rooted in the social. Many of the courses are rooted in the social sciences. So yes.
Yes, thank you so much. I saw also a confirmation by Professor Adu. So, Professor, when we are aiming with this course to bring a new perspective on some global issue, we're going to talk about it within a few minutes from now. How important is it for the diaspora itself to get more acknowledged of this expertise, of this knowledge through this study? What would be your main aim to say, okay, it is a quite necessity to have such a study as the Africana Development Studies?
It's very critical. It's very critical to look at that and to be part of such a study or course or program, because it positions you at the cusp of the making of history. First of all, you understand that there are a lot to the African population, the African race, that when you are able to appreciate, you can effectively and efficiently navigate your way in such dimensions and relationship. Today, the Chinese are setting up the Confucian Institute, even in my university and elsewhere, and gradually and systematically beginning to have a tenuous hold on Africa. There are a lot of issues to talk about even in this domain, but the point is that we need to be conscious and deliberate or intentional in getting everyone on board to understand that Africa is for Africans. However, Africans in the diaspora have a place wherever they are. The network of the relationship is historical. It did not just happen overnight. And to be part of this program, you'll be exposing yourself to understand the smooth, tapestry, right, which has been designed or made through the plaster of knowledge which comes from these various intellectuals that will serve as a cement to bring everyone together under a better perspective of what Africana study is in terms of development is, what our spirituality is, what our perspective about the globalized world is. And that happens with respect to appreciating what has happened historically, what has happened in terms of our knowledge in the area of the economy, what has happened in the area of food and food history. Just to inform Cheryl, my Oxford Encyclopedia entry will be coming on food and agriculture history, and I hope to share it with you to see how it can best fit in the next lecture. But interestingly, you are having a mosaic of intellectuals who will be coming from various angles to bring you this rich tapestry. It doesn't happen every day where you are able to pull all these resources from different angles to build on knowledge. And that is the uniqueness of this project. That is the uniqueness of this program. And any individual who is able to go through it systematically, like I said earlier, is able to become a worthy ambassador of the African project and a worthy ambassador of the nature of the relationship that Africa's development is to the world and the world to Africa within the melting pot of ideas. Again, may I say that the kind of intellectuals Cheryl draws our attention to, for example, Horace Campbell, I have had the opportunity to encounter him. It was a stint, but I mean, we had him at KNUST to present to my Department of History and Political Studies some years ago. He was at the University of Ghana, spent a lot of time at African Studies, University of Ghana, and all that. So these are, intellectuals who, in their own rights, have crisscrossed, right, various spans and time and spaces and environment, and have been able to engage, like she said, the Western intellectuals and knowledge production, and have had the opportunity severally to also engage the African literature and production of knowledge. When there is the sweet interplay of these forces or intellectuals coming together, then you are able to bring about a well-balanced and nuanced group of persons who will be much useful in their workspaces, useful in their social spaces, and useful in their political spaces. Sometimes you listen to some politicians from the West, not stereotyping, you ask yourself what is happening here. More so, you listen to some politicians from, several jurisdictions where you find that these people are persons of African descent and should know better, but sometimes they goof, they speak off the cuff without really understanding what is required of them. And so this particular program has the tendency or the proclivity to shape leadership in terms of perspectives and development and even the politics across the diaspora. And that is very significant, my brother.
Thank you so much, Professor. Cheryl, also thanks you to your first explanation of the course, the relevancy and the outline. Is there anything more you like to add to the introduction, or otherwise to the necessity Professor Adu just described for this collaboration, and to be assured that this course is also able here in Europe?
Yeah, thank you, Marciano. I just want to emphasize that the course itself, as I stated, it's a 2-year commitment with the 4 blocks, 8 courses, 2 courses per block. But the intent is that, people who are working professionals can take some of these ideas, some what they're learning, these thoughts, and even some of these development approaches, and maybe incorporate them into their jobs, into their job structures, into the way they work within whatever kind of setting they might be earning their living. So it's the intent that there's, a policy implementation aspect to it. Some of the courses will talk about that as well, explore that. Research role. We do ask that the students, each course, let me say this, each course is 10 weeks. And within that 10-week frame, you have the last 3 weeks, I believe, 7 weeks of interaction with your lecturer. Tuesday, Fridays, 3 hours each day. So 6 hours a week of lecture, the seminar. Let's call it a seminar, not lecture. And then at the last 3 weeks, we create an opportunity for people to do research. You can use your, if your job site is your research site, your job site is your research site, right? But to incorporate some of these concepts and ideas into what you do in your everyday life, and bring that to your fellow classmates, and also bring that to the teachers as well. Because remember, this is going to be a cross-continental experiment. So we'll have folks from the Netherlands, hopefully the Netherlands Antilles, as well as Suriname participating. So we're wanting there to be some synergy here and ideas and how people approach policy, how they approach development, how they approach research with these different topics. So the last 3 weeks will be dedicated to doing that, doing some amount of field research, as well as presenting that research to your fellow classmates.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cheryl White. I gave a word to Marvin from the Bose Institute, and I also see there was a question about the time lectures. It depends on the country or the kind of systems you have. I hope Dr. Cheryl White has answered this question. Otherwise, could you please repeat it, Ms. Lachanda Moore? Then we also will answer the question. But first, I will head to you, Marvin.
Oh, yeah, like Cheryl was saying earlier, it's kind of hard for me to follow on the presentations that are being made by Cheryl herself and Dr. Adubiamfi. But it's amazing. I think it gives a clear indication of what students can expect when they start attending this course. But I just wanted to add three things. Eerste, ga ik in het Nederlands zeggen. We spreken een heleboel Nederlands in deze presentatie. To facilitate Dr. Adubiamfi, but de cursus zal in het Nederlands en in het Engels verzorgd worden. Het is wel belangrijk om dat even aan te geven. Tweede is dat ik even meneer Donau, Kenneth Donau, die ook zit mee te luisteren, even een pluimpje wil geven. I had a very beautiful interview with Kenneth Donau a few days ago, in which he truly understood that this course totally flips the script of history, because in the past it used to be that the colonists used to steal people from Africa, take them to the Caribbean, and they used to bring all sorts of stuff out of the Caribbean to Europe, and they used to ship them their wars and their guns and everything nasty to Africa back. Now we are flipping the script. We have a lot of amazing scholars. They have already been mentioned, both in the Caribbean, in the US, and in Africa, who are now available to give lectures in this course. So we're flipping the script. I think that's beautiful to also realize that we're doing that. Yeah, the academics that have been mentioned, I think we should also emphasize that we have amazing academics right here in the Netherlands and in Europe and in the Caribbean, who will also be available to give lectures at this guest lectures at this in this course. This course was of course developed in Suriname initially for a Surinamese target group, but to make it more, we decided together to make it more to broaden the scope, to also be able to reach an audience, students here in the Netherlands, here in Europe, with things that apply to our lives here in the Netherlands. I'm not going to mention names at this moment, but I can promise that we have in our network in Bose Institute, we have amazing scholars who will also be giving lectures. I wanted to add that.
Thank you so much, Marvin. I seen that there's a little practical question asked by Miss Saskia Meiland, because it says there has been a point in which way you can contribute to the course. So it will be one amount in total, or we publish in 6 or 8 parts. So it might be useful to answer this also. I will give you the word, Marvin, or otherwise one of the others speakers. Marvin, at you.
I'll answer both questions quickly. The time that has been decided, the tijdstip, shall we do it in English or in Dutch? Tijdstip dat is gekozen voor the time that has been decided for the course, for the lectures, is on Tuesdays and Fridays. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl. Tuesdays and Fridays, 6 o'clock for 2 hours, 6 p.m. Dutch time. And we chose that specific time because that will be, at that time, we'll be able to facilitate both students in Suriname and students in the Netherlands at the same time, which is also unique because I see the New Yorker having frowns on her face, which it will also it will also facilitate both students, which is also unique because I don't think it has ever been done that students in Suriname and students in the Netherlands will be in a classroom, a virtual classroom at the same time, following classes from lecturers from Suriname, from the Netherlands, from outside outside the Netherlands in Europe and in Africa at the same time, which it's pretty unique. So that's the issue of time. If there's more questions on that, we're here to answer those. And as far as the issue of the tuition is concerned, we actually had that discussion today. Ik had vandaag, Cheryl, just for your information, ik had vandaag een gesprek met Geesius daarover. En het bedrag wordt gesplit in meerdere transacties. Dus het wordt in plaats van 175 voor 8 termijnen, wordt het voor mij 85 voor 16 termijnen, als ik dat goed heb. Maar het bedrag wordt nog aangepast op de website.
Thank you so much, Marvin. And Cheryl, I see you have one thing to add.
Yeah, thanks, Marciano. I just want to state that all the information that we're providing you with now, you will be able to find on our respective websites. You'll find a study hits, a study guide with all the information for all the courses, a courses overzicht, a course outline that gives you all the information on the teacher, the leerdoeling, the learning objectives, the product, the expectation of the product that we have, which is usually a paper and a presentation, the number of credits for each class. It's roughly 20-something pages, but there will be one on the website of Broos Institute and also one on the website of ADACT, uvs.edu, and also our inschrijven formulier, our inschrijving formulier in Engels.
Yes.
Registration form.
Registration form, thank you. Certain things I only ever hear in Dutch. Yes, registration form as well on each person's respective website. Obviously, for Surinamers, the price is different. Please know that it's in SRDs. The price is very different. It's not euros. We know our reality here, so the price is different. But you can find that information at Broos Institute website as well as at ADACT, uvs.edu. Okay.
Yeah, and to add to that, Broos Institute, indeed, I'm going to share quickly as a QR code that people could scan to be able to get directly to the site. So I don't know if you see it. Anybody who wants to make use of it, go ahead and scan, and it will take you directly to the Broos site. I'm going to remove it in a few minutes, but you can continue with your questions if you like, Marciano.
I will continue with this open house because one of the things we have programmed for tonight, for this afternoon, is what does the study yield? So in what way does the study contribute to our daily concerns, to our daily movements, to our position in Europe? Yes, in Europe. And more specific, I want to start with the challenging and the defining that not only Afro-European try to do nowadays, but also the challenging and defining their citizenship with an Afro-European perspective added to the more dominant West European philosophy. So I was wondering, while I inviting Dr. Cheryl White, I'm inviting Mr. Helmut Geesius, I'm inviting Professor Samuel Adu, and I'm inviting Marvin at First Sight to discuss the challenges you all see when it comes to defining ourselves as a European citizen, with whether an African descent, whether it's because of the diaspora, whether we are interested in also an African perspective and African philosophy. So I was wondering what your ideas are nowadays, what we are challenging and where we are ahead of. Can I ask Dr. Cheryl to start with her first concern or with her first need?
I'm sorry, Marciana, was it to a question about what African ideology or about what does the course yield? Because
No, about the African ideology, because lots of European citizens, but also people who are interested in the African philosophies, they are dealing with on what way we can stand firm with another perspective. That is not only based, what you mentioned in the introduction, by a dominant West European perspective on our citizenship, but we can also add an African philosophy, and we can also add more African philosophers with their perspective to be more assured about our citizenship nowadays.
Yeah, thank you for that question. You know, it's interesting because Suriname, if any of you or any anthropologists out there are familiar with anthropological texts about Suriname, Suriname has long been sort of a beacon for African retentionisms. You know, that's one of the paradigms that's very present in the research of African diaspora, retention, rebellion, and that's because of the Maroon culture here. If any of you are aware of that, Suriname, and I say this as a Jamaican, I say this: Suriname has the most well-defined Maroon culture really in the Western Hemisphere. You have them in Jamaica, in Brazil, in the southeastern US, Puerto Rico, no, not Puerto Rico, but Haiti, many countries, Colombia, but it's Suriname that has been sort of this apical figure for the study of what it means to retain African elements in its culture. And that's because many of these groups are residing in the interior part of the country, and they, through, you know, policies or lack thereof, and just spatial relationships, they've been able to really amplify this idea of African retention. And just to give you a joke, when we first met Dr. Adu, I looked at his name and I said, Yamfai, that's a clan name here. I pronounced it incorrectly, but that's how it's pronounced here because it's a clan name. It's a Maroon clan name, Yamfai. And he said, no, it's Gamfi. I said, okay, well, there's clearly some relationship here. And that's one of the things that we're lacking out of all the research that has been had, anthropological research, and I'm an archaeologist by training, so archaeological research, there's still so much more to explore in terms of the linguistic relationship between the continents, the social development relationship between the continents, and identifying that, excuse me, those places where we meet, where we have retained certain elements, African elements. And there was a study done some years ago by a French genetics team, geneticists, a French group of geneticists, and they took samples from Maroons in Suriname, Maroons in Colombia, Brazil, and Jamaica. And their findings were that Surinamese Maroons maintained something like 98% of their African genetics, 98% from the sample group they took. This was vastly different from that of Brazil, Colombia, and Jamaica, where it was sort of like 60-40, 50-50, that kind of thing, split between Europeans, Africans, and indigenous. Suriname maintains 98% of that, Suriname Maroons, from the sample that they used. So that just gives you an indication of the basis from which we're building upon to understand these retentions better. And how they've been discussed thus far. I mean, it's Suriname has always been really kind of a, how do I say this? A place for exploration. Let's put it that way. A place from which to better understand these kinds of relationships. Helmut, maybe you can explain it better than me.
Okay, I want to add something Okay, let's try it in English, because for Professor Adu to understand as well. Last year, some people from the secondary school asked me for a presentation. It were teachers in how do you say levensbeschouwing?
Life skills.
Yeah, and yeah, worldviews. No, not. It were teachers from the Moravian schools that were founded by the Moravian Church, and they asked me for a presentation to add something to their course, to their lessons, and I talked about the Ubuntu philosophy, and it was so elaborative for these teachers to have this other view on education, citizenship, as Professor Adu was talking about, and so on. So I think there is a great relevance to brought in African philosophies, ideologies, and worldviews. Another thing, I with some colleagues from the University of Suriname, we did basic research under Afro-Surinamese people to draft a research agenda for the next 10 years. It has to do with the slavery period, the transatlantic slavery period, the effects of slavery, mentally, and all that kind of effects. And what came out of this research is that a reparation program is needed on history, to write history not from the perspective of the slave owners, but from the descendants of the one that have been enslaved, to elaborate on our identity, what are the roots of our identity, how should we approach our identity, are there African approaches to construct our identity. Reparations is needed on our social lives or our family lives. This all were impeded by Western way of social living. It is more individualistic. All the family ties that we used to have were broken one way or the other. So we need use knowledge on how should we reparate our social life, our family life. Reparation is needed on culture, yeah. Not to mention what has happened with our culture, that in fact we're overruled by Western culture, leadership, nature, land use, and ecology, economy, because we're used to this market economy, but I suppose there are other kinds of economies that exchange other things than money, and maybe for other purposes than profit.
Give me the opportunity, Mr. Helmut, because while you and Dr. Sherwood are describing the need to redefine and to find out filling ways in about our citizenship in the diaspora, it also gives me the opportunity, not only a question for you, but I thought about one of the first impression Mr. Marvin Hoekstam had when he first arrived in Europe and stayed here till nowadays, was that he pointed out that I have seen so much difficulties in participating in local. He has seen so many difficulties in participating in national and European policy making with the Afro-European philosophy. I'm one of those people who is involved in policy making nationally, European policy. So he was wondering why there isn't such a more structured way to add that Afro-European philosophy. So Marvin, nowadays I would ask you, do you still see those difficulties? Do you still see those concerns? And maybe to the audience or to the participants, also the same question or the same experience, because this is a moment you can participate, so you can ask it whether by chat or in other ways. So just let us know.
Thank you for that question, Marciano. It's a very interesting question. I was actually thinking about it yesterday, about the challenges that I experienced coming to grasp with no longer living in the Caribbean or living in the Netherlands now. When I moved here, I'm a journalist by profession, and a pretty good one, if I may say. When I moved here, despite my university degree in journalism, despite I have 5 journalism awards, and despite all of that, and I'm not saying it to brag, but I just want to mention it because despite all of that, I couldn't find a job because of my skin color. And I decided not to try to get that job anymore. I decided to create that job. I'm not the guy who waits for things to come to him. I'm the guy who creates that thing and makes it his own. And I believe that so to answer your question directly, yes, I experienced a lot of difficulties, but I decided not to wait for those things to change, but to change those things single-handedly, manually. And I believe that's one of those things that we need to do more as a Black community in countries where people think that because we are in a minority that we're a minority. I think we need to change those things ourselves by changing the things and not waiting for the things to be changed, and bring it to the course that we're introducing now. I think that's one of the things that needs to happen. Education is the key to change, and waiting for people to change things for you and not educating those people who have to change those things will not, bear any fruits. I hope I answered your question.
No, more than. And this is also, I think, a challenge in another way, with it maybe in other contexts, but also is a challenge in, for example, Ghana or in Côte d'Ivoire, Professor Adu, because you also there had the difficulties, okay, in what way we gonna renew our, and we're gonna respect and give honor to the contribution of our ancestors and their philosophy, while there's a so strong European Western dominancy also in those countries. So I was wondering, how do you deal with your colleagues with the same challenges? Because that's what is happening here nowadays in Europe. It's quite hard to find space and a way for this philosophy as well, or for these philosophies as well.
Yeah, more so, in a pragmatic sense, you realize that sometimes where we need to rely on indigenous knowledge systems like Ubuntu, which Helmut talks about. I am because you are because I am. The African community and family system is structured in such a way that, you do not only belong to the nucleus family, which is the mother, father, children relation, but you belong to the broader long-distance kin group, which leads up to your natural ancestry. to a large extent, the community is as part of your family and you being part of that community. So that if a child erred on the street, he or she, in a communal sense, did not need a father to correct him or her. Any member, adult member of the community could discipline that child or bring him or her to order. Unfortunately, with overconsumption of European philosophies and ideals, you realize that now, yes, we use the cliches of urbanization, the cliches of industrialization, the cliches of Islamization, Christianization, and all the other forms of religious discussions and anecdotes to that. But what you realize is that in the broader framing of things, we have just jettisoned or rejected the African nuanced approach, the indigenous knowledge systems approach in solving basic problems in agriculture, basic problem in housing, basic problem in family life, and how we relate with each other over time. But it is even at the heart of this kind of structure that chiefs and kings emerge, so that for anyone to become a chief in society, the person need not be a wine brawler or a drunkard, or need not be a thief, or had any character that was defective and would bring the society to disrepute. Do we care about the kind of politics that we have today, where we are not concerned about who finances who and where does a politician get his money from? And I mean, who is he or she accountable, to, in terms of, defining moral conscience and what even allowed our ancestry to live very long. You could not just be out and about to offend people, because there was a social causative element to disease, health, and well-being in society. But with a biological, modern or Western biomedical science, we assume that once you make mistakes and you get your hand chopped off, you can go for some prosthetics and you're okay to go. Or if you lose one limb, you can just put another artificial leg there and begin to move on. But society was not construed in Africa like that. It was construed within the social basis and social element of things, that if you did not act well against another person, it had individual and collective negative impact and ramification. And so there seemed to be a quandary, a problem today with urbanization, again, with internationalization of things and globalization. We are beginning to lose sight of the nuanced approach, the indigenous, the ethno-knowledge nuanced approach, which is embedded in the African approach as to how we must grow, how we must develop, and piece our societies together. Anyway, for the sake of that, it takes me to the need to rethink knowledge production in Africa. It's still a problem, because today, if you want to publish, there are Western intellectual surrogates, African surrogates, who would peer review your work for many months and reject not because of substance. And these are the realities. I'm talking about the quandaries and the challenges, right? So Africans and people of African descent and those in the diaspora should form synergies and begin to think about knowledge production where we share ideas and all that. We've seen that on the continental platform like the African Union, the ECOWAS, the South-South Cooperation in Southern African countries, the Eastern African Bloc in Africa, and all that. But it has not really translated into major quantum leaps that will bring about the change. But it's still the question about going back to our history. Next week, Tuesday, we are launching this book. I'm not sure you can see it because of the background. But next week, Tuesday, we are launching History of Ashanti by Otumfuo Nana Osei-Agyeman Prempeh II. And we are looking at a first-hand history shared by the Asantehene Prempeh II himself, a story he wrote in his diaries and all that, and what came from his own servants over time. It's a huge book with appendices and all that. We are launching it. But the fundamental aspect of it is that there should be much more knowledge production to make sure that we can come to the table like this to rethink our future which has a lot of questions, but which has also a lot of glowing testimonies. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We have some questions from the participants and some contribution as well. I will first start with the contribution from Lachanda Moore. If I'm correct, what she found out, you can also read it in the chat box, but I will cite her, that former African institutions in the Western world tend to get tamed as they broaden out to general society. When they get popular, money and politics deteriorate its original purpose. So it means like there is a certain threat when bringing in your aims with this study. So maybe I can ask Marvin or Cheryl, are you aware of these threats and how to deal with it? Because I think this is a very relevant contribution and concern as well.
Marvin, maybe you can answer that.
I think that's a general problem. I was making the joke a few weeks ago, friends of mine, that they say that money is the root of all evil. But the problem again, the response to the problem again, I think, is in education. We send our children to in Suriname, for instance, the best schools in Suriname are private schools. I had a friend who told me a few months ago, last year it was, that she was very proud of the fact that she was sending her children to Dutch schools in Suriname. And I understood, but I did ask her, so you're sending your children to school in Suriname to become Dutch people. How can you expect Dutch people to love Suriname more than people from Suriname? So as long as we don't change that, as long as we don't fix that, these broader problems that you're mentioning will continue to exist, because we're making money, we're making financial gain more important than general gain. Last week, regarding this course, somebody called me and asked me if we already had, I didn't even tell you this, Cheryl. Somebody called me and asked me if we already had enough people who registered for the course to make it, cost effective.
Yeah.
And I had to explain to this person that, yes, you're right. Everything that you do has to be cost effective. But at the same time, if everything you do has to be cost effective, when do you do things for the greater good? You know, we need to find a way to make greater good the greater good. You know, and we have been sucked up. We made all these Western capitalist ideologies. We have internalized them, which makes, and we need to be able to grow, you know, beyond that, over that. And the only way to do that, again, being a teacher, is by using education.
But thank you so much, Marvin, also for this contribution. And if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, correct me, please, Ms. Lachanda Moore. It also seems like an invitation to the course leaders and the professor also to discuss and also to explain some of the difficulties while pointing out and offering this study, because this is also about power structure. So I think this is also the invitation that you can discuss it on a very fundamental level. So thank you so much once again for this contribution, Ms. Lachanda. Also, I would like to...
Machado, you skipped the question that Ms. Moore had asked before, and I think it's a very important question. She asked it at 1847. Shall I repeat it quickly?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
Because I think it's a very important question. Is there anything being done to bring African-centered education to children in the diaspora? We're working on it. This is only a first step. And we hope to be getting there, not slowly but surely, but step by step, and we're taking huge steps.
Okay.
May I address that? May I
Yes.
address that? There was under the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. It's an initiative actually that's ending, I think, this year. University of the West Indies, Dr. Vereen Shepherd there, under the umbrella of the UN Decade. I believe she did put together a curriculum, if I'm not mistaken, a curriculum for young Jamaicans to integrate more historical information into the curriculum of like K through, they don't have K through 12 there, obviously, but primary school children through high school children. And one of her collaborators is Arman Sunder. And they both, he's a Suriname, he's also a teacher for one of these classes, a class on economics. He's an economist by training. I think he trained at Leiden University, and they work together under the auspices of this kind of reparations program. And as a product of that, there was an effort. So I mean, Jamaica is leading the way on that. To answer your question, I think they have a website as well that you can go and check out about that. It's under this Center for Reparations that's led by Dr. Vereen Shepherd there. Yeah.
Thank you. I would also like to add another question brought by Pauline Ann. The first question she has is, how can we cope with also Black people who have internalized racism in the Caribbean or Suriname, Curacao, etc., etc.? So my main question would be, is this also part of the identity search people from the diaspora can have, or also on part of the identity search when it comes to the African philosophy? Might be a question to Mr. Helmut, but also to the other lecturers to answer. But I want to start it with you, Mr. Helmut.
Okay.
It can also be in Dutch, and then we'll try to translate it.
Yeah. But one part of the question I didn't get right. Could it be addressed from an African philosophy?
If the course also facilitates the concerns like how to cope with also Black people who have internalized racisms or other concepts like colorism or other dividing concepts. So this is the main question when it's come to the multiple perspective.
Yeah. Of course, that is brought in by all the lecturers, because as we know, our way of living, our identities are being problematized by Western views. So we have to de-Westernize our the views on our identities, and all lecturers are addressing this concern, and education. Courses like this will be the solution to de-Westernize and our way of living, our identity, because it is being problematized by economics, by law, by politics, by religion, by education as well. So all these aspects will be addressed by the different lecturers. The Afrocentric perspective will be the main focus, to address these kind of concerns.
Thank you so much. And due to our schedule, and I don't want to force anyone to stay longer, but I think it's quite important to facilitate the questions and some of the chats that has been involved. One of the questions I see is directed to me. If I could repeat my question regarding the position identity, of course I can do that for Stancy, but also for the other visitors. But my main concern when I was talking about the challenging is that here in Europe, for example, that whether you are someone from the African diaspora, so I would describe them as an Afro-European. Otherwise, people who are just interested in a so-called Afro-European perspective are facing challenging, and then they are facing also the challenging to define themselves as a European with a perspective, or finding challenging with describing and defining themselves as an Afro-European citizen. So that was the main question, but I will put it in the chat as well. But thank you so much for repeating the question. Pauline, and also add a contribution, pointing out that the religion taught blacks that money is not important. Well, this is quite common, but also Professor Adoum mentioned that it is quite important to know where the historical base is to such ideas, so such concepts, which has to be postponed like it is a religion, like it is a certain truth. So thank you also. And there was also a question from Ms. Lachanda Moore, if there is anything being done to bring African-centered education to children in the diaspora. And there were some examples here in the Netherlands. You have a city called Rotterdam. You have a small example, but what I understand is that there is still a need, and there's still a way to get to the next step. So this is also an invitation. To make a summary through all the speakers, you have heard some questions, you have heard some concerns, and you have been explaining how to deal with those concerns and those great global issues through the course. What would be your last word for now? So I will start with Dr. Cheryl first, and then I will ask Professor, and then I will go to Helmut, and I will end with Mr. Marvin Brose. But Dr. Cheryl, what would be your last word after this open house at first sight?
What I want people to walk away understanding is that, I speak from the position of not being Surinamese, but living in Suriname and working here in this country, a country that's relatively young. This country is younger than I am, right, in terms of its post-colonial experience, and seeing how the vestiges of colonialism are still very strongly represented here, and how it affects particularly the heritage sector. I've never seen so much very robust Dutch people come and make declarations about what should be happening here heritage-wise. It always leaves me gobsmacked. I don't know how to say that. You have to look at the structure and the implements in place. I'm also an advisor to the Director van Cultuur here, to the government office, writing a national guideline for archaeology, and also the founder of the archaeology program at the university. You have to have certain structures in place, and you have to put your people first. You have to understand when you have home court advantage. I tell my students this, I said, you have home court advantage, use it, use it, use it, right? Understand what your role is, understand what your history is. I just had a conversation about this last night with one of our old students, about teaching someone, a Dutch person, about this. What is a Surinamese perspective, which some of our historians here have written, published quite a bit about. Not a Dutch perspective, but a Surinamese perspective. And the Dutch people they didn't understand why we felt the need to have that, why that need existed. They questioned it. They questioned it. So you have to understand that there is more than one way to talk about history and cultural development. There's more than one way. And I'll leave it on that note. And I'm hoping that I'll meet many of you in the coming months so we can explore that a bit more.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your wonderful last words, Dr. Cheryl White. Professor Adoum, it's up to you.
Just want to say that it's wonderful learning from the feet of Cheryl and all the other guys here. It's just interesting. And for me, I think we should additionally look for opportunities. When in in the Western concepts of things, when people go to school, they network. The institutions itself become the basis of networking. And that if you graduated from a particular institution, you were acclaimed to be of this particular sort of person. I believe that this platform, this course, this program gives Africans, persons of African descent, and other individuals who want to build on their knowledge to have the ability to network within such framework, to look at the existing opportunities in the diaspora and opportunities in the homeland, i.e. Africa, and see the ways, the appropriate pathways to engineer collaborations that will lift both parties up. And that cannot be overlooked and cannot be overemphasized, because what is the essence of knowledge if it will not translate into mission? And so the outlook should be what comes out after the training. And one of it is effective and efficient networking, which I believe we should be available to facilitate and to see how far we can go with it. The team of experts on board must begin to see that this is a conduit through which we are able to build a formidable front that will not just be an icing, but to lay solid foundations that could be built upon the foreseeable future. You asked an interesting question about colorism. The colonial era produced an interesting scenario in the Gold Coast. Black-white race union, which gave birth to mulattoes or mixed race children, here largely referred to as half-caste or mulattoes and all that in the case of the Gold Coast, became merchant princes, like the John Capes. They became merchant princes. They had a certain social status because they were neither black nor white. But in America, the definition of black, if you were a mixed race, you were still black. So the question about colorism and identity is very critical here. By the close of the 1950s, the Syrians, the Lebanese, the Indians in Ghana owned businesses across board on the back of colonization and all that. When these persons had mixed race interactions and produced mulattoes or half-castes, they had certain social status. If you read one of my works on skin bleaching in Ghana, I discuss some of these dichotomies and dynamics. But it is essential for us to know that what we are faced with, it is not just skin deep, like somebody asked. It is how we have internalized the processes to the extent that if you kept some fish or fingerlings in an aquarium and they are able to swim end to end of the aquarium, and you decide to put similar or same fingerlings in another aquarium, and you put a wall in the aquarium, and when they swim and hit that wall for a very long time, if you remove the blockade in the aquarium, you will see that the fingerlings will not swim beyond that blockade, which has become imaginary. So we need to ask ourselves how we internalize the processes and how we are able to reshape the narrative to bring us to a place where Blacks will own their own properties through new synergies and alliances and build synergies with their foreign and European counterparts that would be on even keel and not to the disadvantage or the service of the others. Because historically, what has happened is that the West has plowed back profit from Africa, exploited Africa, processed raw materials, and sold it back to Africa. The game must change, even in the face of religion, among other things. Thank you very much. These are my last words on that. Right.
Thank you so much, Professor. And I'm quite sure that students or participants of the course that they will have the privilege to also meet you again while delivering one of the lecturers through this course. So thank you so much. Mr. Helmut, you also have heard the alignment, the network is quite important. So I will give you the last words as well from this open house.
Ja, ik zal het even het Nederlands doen, kort. Ik weet niet wie van u Hein Eersel gekend heeft, de linguist. Omheen. In ieder geval, ik sprak hem over deze cursus. Hij was toen 99 jaar. Niet lang daarna werd hij 100, niet lang daarna kwam hij te overlijden. Maar hij gezegd, eigenlijk wat hij zei.
I will make a summary in English at the end, by the way. Thank you.
Ja. Waar velen over hadden gedroomd, is nu werkelijkheid geworden. Dus hij bedoelt de mensen met wie hij optrok, jaren 60 of 70, wie Egisani, noem maar op. Dus deze cursus komt als geroepen. En eigenlijk ieder die zich hier heeft aangemeld, zoals de mensen in het eerste cohort, dat zijn al mensen die op een missie waren. Ik geloof weinig dat we ze op een missie hebben gezet. Dat kan in laatste instantie het geval zijn geweest. Maar waarschijnlijk geven we ze een duw in de missie die zij al zijn aangevangen. En dat is om de verandering te brengen in de discourses waarmee we zijn gevormd en waarmee we zijn onderwezen al die jaren. En dan op verschillend gebied. En waarom deze cursus ook liever eerder dan later moest zijn geweest. We kennen dus die hele discussies wereldwijd, maar ook in Nederland over de effecten van het transatlantische slavernijverleden en de doorwerking daarvan. Ieder die hier is, neem ik aan, die wil heel graag, dolgraag, als het gaat om de effecten van doorwerking, dat ieder van ons daar verandering in wil helpen brengen, want er is werk aan de winkel. Iemand had het over concerns, er zijn vele vraagstukken waarmee wij worstelen. En een meerstemmige benadering, een afrocentrische benadering, dat is wat deze cursus voorstaat. En het mooie is, het is niet die klassieke studie zoals we het kennen. De ingangseis is VWO. Maar het zijn allemaal professionals die zich aanmelden. En mensen met een uitgesproken mening, welhaast, maar die dat willen aanscherpen. Mensen met een uitgesproken mening over wat er moet gaan gebeuren als het gaat om Afrikanen in diaspora.
Thank you so much, Mr. Also, to make a summary for the professor, when Mr. Helmut talked about his last words, he started with explaining how important it is that we recognize that the first participants of the course are the ones who already were having this mission. So this course is just adding something that they wanted for their own mission. So with that in mind, that the lecturers have a certain idea that those people are not the ones to convince. They already have the inner motivation to gain that knowledge and to be more informed and to develop themselves in a certain way and to have such perspective. So it's very kind of him. And also that the alignments which you were talking about, Professor, is always also being seen in this process. So Mr. Helmut, thank you also for this contribution and these last words. Marvin, I will give you the opportunity to give a last word and also come to the end. And I want to add the contribution that when I've heard you guys talking about the differences when it comes to the participants, then I hear we're talking about so-called city makers, people who are building their city, but also people who are making contribution to the local culture or to the local identity, and also policymakers. So with that in mind, it's a quite interesting group, it's a quite interesting network you're building with this Africana development studies. Marvin, to you to have the
Yeah, again, it's almost impossible to add anything to what the three speakers ahead of me have already contributed.
Then
But
we're
I'm
going to deal with that.
no, but it's still important to because Cheryl mentioned that there were Dutch people in Suriname who couldn't understand why people from Suriname wanted to have their own Surinamese perspective. It is ingrained in people who consider themselves dominant, who consider us the minority, to think that we don't have our own perspectives. When before Broos Institute reached out to universities to bring Afrocentric education to the Netherlands, we had applied for a permit to start a Afrocentric secondary school. It was mentioned earlier that there are incidental initiatives in Amsterdam and in Rotterdam for Saturday and weekend schools that teach Black children Afrocentric ways. But we wanted to have a structural school, and I was trying to share it. I was trying to share the response from the municipality earlier, but I couldn't get through that. But the municipality responded that an Afrocentric secondary school would bring segregation. You know, so it's important that we keep pushing, that we keep doing what we're doing, which again is why I'm happy. I'm proud, and to wrap it up, I'm proud that we're doing this today. I'm proud that we could launch this course together with the University of Suriname. Helmut lied earlier. He said that he called me. I called him to tell him how proud I was of him that he was starting this, that he was heading this course. So we reached out because it's such an amazing thing. Like Hein Ursel indeed said, it could not be done earlier. So we're happy to be able to bring this, and I'm extremely proud of everybody who is in this call with us today. We're writing history as we speak. The information on how to reach out to us is already known, but if anybody wants my phone number, wants to reach out to me to ask any more questions, feel free. We have all email addresses of everybody who signed up. If you allow us, we will be sending you newsletters in the next couple of weeks to keep you abreast of things that are happening in this course. Yeah, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm going to thank you, Marvin Hoekstam from Broos Institute. I'm going to thank you, Helmut Gezizes from Anton de Kom University, Suriname. I'm going to thank you, Professor Adu from the KNUST from Ghana. And I'm going to thank Dr. Cheryl Wright, also from Anton de Kom University, and one of the course leaders, for your contribution tonight. I also want to thank the participants for the contribution tonight, and also said by Ms. Petra Ploeg. Thank you all for your incredible work and wonderful presentation. This is very very pleasant position for me to moderate this evening, and also a privilege to be part of it. So thank you so much. Marvin, once again, just like Mr. Helmut did in the chat, he has point out some further information, especially from Surinamese students. Ms. Stacy, thank you also for your kind words. And Marvin, you might want to share the QR code once again for participants who later join this open house while we are ending this. Thank you so much all. Indeed, Ms. Nootmeer, congratulations and thank you. And I wish you all a pleasant evening or afternoon. Thank you so much all. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Even laat ik nog even.
Bye-bye.
Sorry? No, I don't think it was a question, but thank you so much all.
Thank you, Marciano.
Bye,
You could have
Marvin.
asked for a
Yeah.
better host.
That's great. Bye, Marvin, and everyone.
Very good to see you again, Samuel.
Yes, see you soon. Right. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Adu, we'll talk. He's gone.
Bye-bye,
So,
everybody.
Marciano, Helmut, goed gedaan, jongen, goed gedaan.
Still trying to log.
Ja, het was goed.
Yeah, it was
Fantastisch.
good. Yeah. It was a very good idea. I think it's, I think we're going to see, hopefully a lot of people. I think we
Yeah,
just need to very quickly, Marvin, get the,
Cheryl, quickly, before he logs out, I quickly want to introduce you guys to Jacob Spiegel. Jacob, say hi quickly before you leave.
oh, where's Jacob? Where is he?
Hello,
Can you
everyone. I loved this. It was so great. Thank you.
Hi, Jacob. Can we see your face, Jacob, please?
Yeah, I'm outside, but I'm gonna run back in. Give me 1 second. I'll turn on my video.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jacob is the one that I was telling you about, Marciano, about the study abroad courses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yes.
I'm about to get inside.
But Cheryl, we still have guests. Mr. Donau, you still with us?
Who's still logged in besides Jacob?
Hallo,
Kenneth, dankjewel voor je
Donau.
aanwezigheid, Kenneth.
dank jullie wel voor het hosten. Thank you all for hosting this and organizing this. It is only there because it has to be there. Too late actually, but yes, I'm so happy with this initiative. I'm looking forward to the course. And of course, I will be there, participate and distribute all the knowledge I get. Thank you all.
Good,
Kenneth
that's
is a
great.
radio host here.
Oh, okay, good. That's great
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. That's really good to hear.
Another thing is I did the, so we in Europe, we do have, it's called the BESS, Black Europe, something
That's
studies.
what we were talking about last week, Jacob.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I did that one. It's a 2-week course, also with from a decolonial perspective, but
Mhm,
it's really on the PhD level.
mhm.
The lower entry courses are of course much more necessary in
Mhm.
to broaden the knowledge. So I'm so happy that we can do this at different levels in the
Yeah.
education system. And yes, I was waiting for it. It came, and thank you very much.
We're happy
Great.
to have you,
Great.
Mr. Donau.
Yes. So
Yeah.
good luck, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good
Ah,
evening.
bon.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Good evening. Goedenavond.
I like
Yes.
guests that don't leave.
Jacob, you're still there.
I'm here now. I
Okay.
think I turned on my camera, but I'm not sure if it worked.
But I
Yes,
think
we
Mr.
see you.
Stanzi has a question, maybe?
Oh no, good evening everyone. I'm just listening very ja, met alle plezier en ja. Heel erg
Oké.
goed.
Nou, we hopen dat je
Pleasure.
inschrijft, meneer Stanzi.
Pleasure.
Ja, ik heb zelf ook wel een aantal ideeën, dus ja, wie weet hè.
Netjes, netjes. Elvira. Yine tak notie, waar ben je? Hij zegt,
Mija, I'm here. Maar deze eerste keer dacht ik van nee, ik laat jullie moeten you have to take the floor. En
Oké,
ja, ik ben ondersteuning, achtergrond.
Ja.
oké. We hebben nog mevrouw Pelland nog.
But
En mevrouw Sof.
this is being so very nice, but I think we have to wrap it up. But I just wanted to introduce you guys quickly to Jacob. because we'll be working together with Jacob as well. So just so you know.
With Bros Institute, he'll be
Yes.
a part of the Bros team. Okay, great.
Yes.
That's good to know.
And
Okay, well,
actually, Jacob has a Writing for Change course that I wanted to introduce. I have his name actually in the list of possible guest lecturers, but
Okay.
we'll get back to that some other time.
Ja.
okay, good. That's
Even,
good to know.
maar
So
kunnen, kunnen Jolanda en Sophie ook even iets zeggen voordat we uitloggen?
Ja,
Ook al is het
ja,
een minuut.
dat is ook mijn vraag. Dankjewel, Helmoet.
Yolanda, we horen je niet. Jacob, you'll have to learn Dutch. I'm sorry.
I know. I already.
Hello, good evening. I hope you hear me. No.
Yeah, we hear you.
yeah,
Oh,
Yolanda,
okay.
baby.
Well, good evening. Yeah, I'm listening. In how you say that, in admiration and curiosity, and I want to know more and more, and I don't know why everybody's leaving because I could sit here all night probably. So, thank you.
Well, Yolanda is two things. From the moment I placed the article on our page, and I've known Yolanda as a journalist for a while, but from the moment I placed the article on the page, she shared it like 20 places all over. And I really appreciate the support, Yolanda. And she's here not only as a student who's going to take part, but she's also here as somebody who I asked, as a journalist, who I asked to write a story about tonight.
Okay.
Great.
And that's Sophie left.
Oh, Sophie is weg. Okay.
But Jacob, you wanted to say something?
I'd love to, yeah, but thank you. I really enjoyed. I read about half an hour late, and I caught the part. I think, Cheryl, you were talking about someone in Connecticut who talks about linguistic shaming and colonialism, and
Yeah, Saran Stewart. She's a Jamaican. She's based at University of Connecticut. Yeah, she talks about what they call the shame of the language, the shame of language, something like that. She has a sort of a coined term that she uses, but I bring it up because I say I'm not Surinamese, but I see how it's used here quite often in terms of, Surinamers, you don't speak your Nederlands is niet goed, je praat niet goed Nederlands, that kind of thing. And it's always sort of an inroads to the other disrespect that comes with that. It's an inroad to it, because if you don't speak Dutch well, what else are you not doing well? And it creates a very strange dichotomy in terms of how people see themselves as enough and capable in the eyes of Dutch people. I see it all the time, and it's something we have to contend with, to be very honest with you, because everything here in Suriname is produced Nederlands, Engels, Tranatongo, all of the different languages. And so everything that we put out, products always have to be reviewed to make sure the language is good. And there's it just always rears its ugly head. It really does. And it's a gateway to other forms of disrespect. It really is. And it makes me mad, to be very honest with you. It disgusts me. It makes me mad.
May I ask, Cheryl? Of course, and I think it's something that I discussed with my Ghanaian colleague as well. The prevalence of English in Ghanaian society. First,
Sorry, Marvin. Due to time, I need to be rude, but I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Marciano, I told you already how much I love you.
Thank you so much, my dear brother. I love you too. You know that. And I really hope that we can make a summarize within a few days, within a few weeks. So I will have to you the opportunity to do so. But once again, thank you all. And in one way or the other, we will meet again.
Ja.
Okay.
Is deze opname toch beschikbaar voor andere studenten, kandidaten ook?
Gaat beschikbaar komen. I have to run myself as well. Somebody came to pick up something at the front door, so I have to go downstairs. You guys may stay. I'll be back in 10 minutes if you're still here.
Thank you so. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
All right, Marciano, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacob, we'll talk soon, yeah?
sounds great.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Jacob,
Bye-bye.
where are you based?
Oh, we already left.
I'm in Massachusetts, in Amherst, Western Mass.
Oh, you're at Amherst. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a colleague there, Whitney Battle Baptiste. She's in the archaeology, I think maybe Department of Anthropology, archaeology. She's an archaeologist though.
Yeah. I know of her work. Yeah, I've met her
You
a
know
few
her
times,
work.
but a
Okay.
few years ago. I did my graduate schooling here too, so I know people through that more than the more recent teaching.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm going to try to see if I can rope Whitney into she wrote a book called Black Feminist Archaeology. We'll see how we can weave her into one of these classes.
That'd be great. Yeah, there's some pretty interesting people here in Amherst. Rachel Mordecai's here, Carol Bailey, really
Mhm.
interesting people. So,
Okay.
yeah,
And what do you do? What is your specialization?
well, I've been building and running these study abroad, experiential learning type programs for a long time in Bahia, Brazil, Cuba,
Mhm.
the Bahamas, and teaching at the same time. So
Mhm.
I was really interested in the linguistic shame and colonialism because I do a lot of work with Kamal Brathwaite and nation language
Oh,
and
okay.
trying to kind of build a writing, teaching pedagogy around nation language and voice and his idea of voice. And so yeah, that's taken me around quite a bit to the Bahamas teaching and I've been working with Marvin. I was working in online with a university in Jamaica, UCC. That's how we met, and that's where we began to kind of design this course around multiple languages in the space of a writing course and how to do that, how to make it kind of an organic process. So yeah, we kind of wrote through Writing for Change, got it all approved on the UCC Jamaica side. And I'm not sure where it stands now, but I'm really interested in designing the study abroad part so that students can begin traveling. I don't know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish what you're saying.
So there could be a kind of lived experiential part. Thinking a lot about, well, I'm here in the US, so I know it's in high demand to have faculty-led programs going to different locations. So to the Netherlands, to Suriname, to Ghana would be really and so yeah, Marvin and I have just stayed in touch since the time and yeah, working with UCC in Jamaica and yeah, it's exciting. So
Yeah, that's great. That's the other thing that Marvin and I were, we've been kind of tossing around. How do we get funding to create some sort of, real synergy across the continents for some of the folks that, participate in the course so that they can um, um, benefit from the research that any one of our lecturers might be engaged in at the time, wherever they might be engaged in it. So that's one of the things that we've been talking about. But I like the idea of the multi-language thing. How does that work then in Jamaica? What are they doing, like patois and yeah, what are they doing there?
yeah, I think UCC is really a business school that opened up another wing. So the business core makes that a little challenging because it's seen as linguistic interference and not a broad kind of composing with multiple languages. And I think some of the colonialism of business practices cut into the program a bit. And so I was going to be the one to step in and lecture, but I lack the fluency linguistically. I can allow for it to come through the writing, but I think having someone knowing the multiple languages would be ideal. Though not always. Sometimes it's good to let students write through their using their own voice. So yeah, in Jamaica with multiple registers and so-called patois or Brathwaite, we call it nation language, coming into that writing space. And the same with Twi and English in Ghana, the same with Bayanese and Brazilian Portuguese coming together in those classrooms. It's been interesting to watch how students adjust to that different framework.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because in Suriname, it's the language thing is ever present because of all the different. I mean, Elvira can speak to that. Everything is always in 3 languages. Any product that you put out, you have to anticipate having to do it in Netherlands, in English, in Sranantongo, if not Sranantongo, because that's the one unifying language here, then maybe one of the other either indigenous or Maroon languages, or Suriname, the language of the Hindustans. I forget what they call that, of the Javan. What I don't know, Elvira is doing something, what they call the Javanese language. But yeah, it's always a challenge here whenever we're doing anything, workshops, and you're inviting indigenous tribal elders, and you always have to account for the various degrees of translations in the room, and how that's going to work, and who sits next to who, and what language should be the pivot language. Should it be Sranantongo? Should it be Dutch? It's always a drama.
Yeah.
Yolanda, hello,
Yeah.
how are you? Are you a Surinamer based in the Netherlands?
I'm born in the Netherlands. My mother is from the Netherlands, and my father is from Suriname.
Okay.
And of course, this language interests me a lot, because my father never did very much to learn me this language. I don't know why. A few words like hello, bye, how are you, and that's it. And I didn't needed it when I was young, growing up here. And I noticed when I came to Suriname for the first time, I didn't understood then. It irritated people that I did not speak Sranantongo. And I was surprised. I was like, okay, if my father would be from Russia, why should I speak Russian in the Netherlands? So I didn't understood the emotional part of it. I was just surprised. I didn't knew, and now I understand it better. I'm like, they probably thought that I felt too good to speak that language. And I was just like, I don't know the language. I want to learn, but I'm here for 6 weeks. I'm sorry, I'm not that quick. So and then it interested me more and more. And now I understand better what's behind all that. And I also tried a few times already by Facebook to start a group of people like me who have a heritage in, do you say it like that, in Suriname and Africa, at least to learn together this Suriname language, because most people from the mix who grow up in the Netherlands are not so, it's not really a language they speak very well. But it was, maybe I did not try hard enough, but it was very difficult to start a group like that. And it was also, or people asked so much money that it was not possible for us for all of us to join this group. So I was like, I'll leave it. Life is there. I have enough to do. But it's always in my mind, like, I know I want it. I have sisters, brothers, nephews that want it as well. So maybe in the future I can do something with that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we don't, out of all the courses that we're offering, we don't have one that's focused primarily on linguistics, on language. Though that's something that we might want to develop for the future. But it's weaved in there in many respects, because when a lot of the lecturers will be Surinamers, and when they draw in that sort of Surinamese perspective in those examples, there's a lot of wording that's just Sranantongo. I mean, there's a lot that people do here. It's
Y'all
just
don't have
really,
a life?
What say ya? What?
Y'all don't have a life?
What do you mean? No, Marvin, we do not. It's funny because, Yolanda, I'm not Surinamese, but I've lived here long enough, and I speak enough Sranantongo that, when I'm mad, I'm more comfortable expressing myself in Sranantongo.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, ita gitu. Yeah. Temi ati brong to na Sranamitaki. Yeah.
Did Jacob tell you that he's been to Jamaica?
Yes, he was just telling me about what he was doing with this multi-language program there.
Yeah,
Oh, Live Lingua. That's what it's called.
Yolanda, I yesterday I was just like you said, Marvin, I need to learn Dutch, and I was like, nope. Let me go find another way to enter here. And so I found out Yolanda, if you open that link, it's a free course developed by the Peace Corps. Lots of lessons, including music, and it's beautiful. The opening, I think you hear the English kind of influence of the, I'm thinking she's American, who set up the course at first, but then when they go into song, it's really beautiful, and that link is all free for the courses, so for language. So
Is this a Sranantongo course?
So where is this course? I didn't understand what.
It's only online. Oh, it takes a minute to open. So the Peace Corps has put it out, and
Peace Corps.
They're calling it Peace Corps Shannon language lessons. So
okay, they're still doing, because they were here many years ago, the Peace Corps, and they left. They left Suriname. I don't know how long ago, Elvira.
Thank you, Penny.
Maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But they used to produce little language booklets. Most of it was, the target group was like the American expat community, the company workers and things like that.
Yeah. I think more than 20 years ago they left.
Yeah.
No, not that. No,
Yeah.
not that. No, I've only been here for 10 years, and they were here in the time I've been here.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. They had an office on Kopenhagenstraat.
Yeah, right. The big building. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were giving out the book. They had the booklets, Jacob, of Sranantongo and in English, yeah. And it was I found it very useful. It's a shame they stopped making it. So, but now you're saying that you can actually get it online. They don't do the.
yeah.
Okay.
The intro parts are a little like, better fast forward. But when they get into the actual language, it's good.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Tip. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was a very good session. Thanks everybody for being there. Jacob, you're all the way from Massachusetts.
Yeah, I'm here in Massachusetts.
I'm hearing a recording.
I think maybe Yolanda's playing the language. You're fast.
All right then. Thank you, everybody.
Nice to meet you.
All right, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Yolanda. Thanks, Jacob.
Talk soon, everybody. Cheryl, shall we call each other tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Let me check my agenda because I'm quite busy in the morning.
Well,
I'll let you know.
we can do this in the chat then.
Okay, Abu.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
All right. Okay, do it. Bye-bye.